How to get a first class in law. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Nini. I'm founder of Simple Studying. I have LLB and LLM degrees from City University of London. I've got high 2-1 and first class grades in my law exams when I was a student. And then I started Simple Studying to help other law students have the same success as I had. Why you should trust us. We have over 26,000 law students right now signed up on our platform, studying with our resources. 90% of our regular customers who got our subscription as well as tutoring sessions have reported to have got a first class after getting premium membership as well as at least 6 hours of tutoring. This is the perfect formula for getting a first class. After working with thousands of law students all around the UK, we know exactly how to get a first class. First class formula. Read your lectures. Like your lectures are very important because it emphasizes on the cases and legal provisions or even journal articles that is important to know for courseworks or exams. So your lecture slides should be your primary source of information that should be read with our notes. So our Simple Studying notes and key summaries plus your lectures should be your where you go for studying. But I do not advise you to read textbooks, those like huge textbooks that they give you. The reason why we don't advise reading textbooks is that it's just too big and confusing. Only like 1% of the information you find in those textbooks will be helpful for your exam. So we'd rather focus students' attention on what is going to come up on the exam and help them understand how to get a high grade rather than confuse them with overwhelming amount of information that you get in thousands of pages of complicated law textbooks. And after reading our notes and case summaries, you should have a look at our model essays because model essays are very important resource that we provide so you understand how to answer problem and essay questions. One thing is to know what is the law and understand the law, but it's a completely new level to be able to apply the law to the facts of the case in a problem question or provide critical analysis in an essay question. Also, watch tutorial videos because in tutorial videos that we have on our YouTube channel as well as on our platform, we focus all the time on how to answer problem and essay questions, and we revise the key topics that you need to know. So if you like watching videos instead of reading, our tutorial videos is great, but the best thing to do is to do both. Read our notes as well as tutorial videos. You can also use our flashcards. We have flashcards that is like a 1 sentence summary of the key cases and the key principles, which helps you memorize the key information, the key legal topics you need to know to get a first class in very efficient and simple manner. And finally, you really need to practice answering problem and essay questions. Most of the law students that spend so much time memorizing all the cases and legal principles, and they forget to practice answering problem and essay questions before they go to exam. And that's the biggest mistake you can make because just knowing the law is not enough. You need to know how to apply that law in practice. So that's why you need to practice. And drafting problem and essay questions is the best way you can practice because it's not something you can learn just by reading how to do it. You have to do it yourself and you have to do it many times to improve your legal writing skills. IRAC structure. This is what you need to know to answer problem questions properly. First, you need to start by saying what is the legal issue. The legal issue is not repeating the facts. Many students just repeat the facts they see in the problem question. That's wrong. You should not repeat the facts. You have to say what is the legal issue. Legal issue can be, for example, if it was contract law, whether or not this is an offer. That's a legal issue. But repeating the facts is not a legal issue. Rule would be then explain the relevant law that it applies to the legal issue. Then you would have to apply the law to the facts of the case and provide analysis. In law, you don't have like one specific answer. It's not science or math. You have many possible answers, and you have to, your job is not to give answers in problem questions. Your job is to give critical analysis. And by critical analysis, we mean evaluating all possible outcomes in the case and explaining how the law would apply and advising the parties in the problem question. That's critical analysis, and that's what you're expected to do instead of just saying who will win the case, because that's impossible. Nobody can say, nobody can like give one clear-cut answer in law. That's not how law works. And then conclusion. What would be the most likely outcome in the problem question scenario? Your goal should be to identify at least 80% of the legal issues that comes up in the problem question, because it's practically impossible to identify all possible legal issues. That's why nobody gets 100 in law. But if you can identify at least 80% of all the key legal issues and provide a very high level of critical analysis, you should be getting a first class. How to answer essay questions. The IRAC structure we just talked about is about problem questions. Now, essay questions are a similar structure. You also need critical analysis, but it's a bit different because here you need an introduction. For problem questions, you don't need an introduction. You can just start talking about legal issues and just jump from one legal issue to another. But you have to first complete the analysis of one legal issue before you go to the next legal issue. Now, how do we answer essay questions? First of all, you need to understand the question. Most of the times what students do is they just read the question, see what it is about. So let's say if it's criminal law and it's about sexual offenses, they see sexual offenses and all they do is they just write everything they know about sexual offenses, which is wrong. Like that's the way to fail. You don't do that. You have to understand what the question is asking you. It will never ask you to write everything you know about the topic. It will never ask you that. So make sure that you understand what the question is and answer it rather than writing everything you know about the question. So do your research, do research on the relevant primary law. What is primary law? By primary law, we mean cases and statutes, the binding authorities. Whereas secondary sources are journal articles, academic resources, those are secondary sources. That's not a binding authority. Journal articles are not a binding authority, but a way to help you with critical analysis, because academic opinions are usually criticizing the law, providing arguments for and against, and you have to use it in essay questions. You don't use journal articles and academic resources in problem questions. You only use them in essay questions. In essay questions, start with an introduction where you explain the main primary law about the topic and say what you're going to argue. In the body paragraphs, explain the law and make arguments for and against. So you cannot just make arguments that are, it has to be twofold. So there are always two sides of the story, and you need to make arguments for and against. The reason is that they are preparing you to be a lawyer. As a lawyer, you will have to defend any party, right? It won't be just like if you're a criminal lawyer, you may be a defense lawyer or prosecution lawyer. So you should be able to defend anything. So you should be able to make arguments about anything, not just who is wrong or right. Then in the conclusion, sum up your main argument and answer the question asked. Here is the step-by-step exam revision and practice to plan for achieving a first class. First, you have to study all the topics because you cannot practice answering problem and essay questions unless you understand the basics. Like you need to first read your lectures, read our notes, understand the topics. Just study all the topics that is covered on your course. Then answer seminar questions. Seminar questions are usually easier to answer than the exam questions. They are more like not that complicated. So it's a good start. because if you go straight to problem questions that come up on exams, it can be too much at the beginning. So it would be good to start with seminar questions for practice. And then you have to revise everything you learned on the course and then start answering problem and essay questions from the past exam papers. The past exam papers should be provided by universities. Not every university provides it, but most of them do. And it should be on your university website, whether you use Moodle or Canvas, whatever you use, just check it out. It should be there. And you should find problem and essay questions in your past exam papers and answer them, draft answers to them. For example, contract law. These are the topics that is normally covered on contract law course in UK universities. Offer and acceptance, consideration, intention to create legal relations, promissory estoppel, misrepresentation, exclusion clauses, or consumer rights. You would study all these topics, make sure you understand the main principles, main statutes, if relevant, main cases, and then practice answering problem and essay questions on all of these topics, all of them. If you cannot answer a problem or essay question on any of these topics, then you haven't prepared yourself for contract law exam. Selective studying. Many first class students use this, but it is only possible if you have an exam that allows you to choose questions you want to answer. There are exams where you only get one question and you have to just answer that one huge question. So you don't get a choice. Or you may have a coursework where you get one big question and you don't get a choice. But if you have a choice, whether it's a coursework or an exam, you can do selective studying. So what it is that you just select the topics you like, just enough number of topics you like, and you only study those selected topics and you only practice answering problem and essay questions on those selected topics, not on everything. Because this way you can focus your energy and attention on those few selected topics instead of trying to learn everything, because learning everything can be overwhelming for many students. So they'd rather reduce the number of topics they want to learn. If you want to do this, make sure that your assessment type allows it, first of all, and then check your past exam papers. When you check your past exam papers, identify what kind of questions come up on the past exam papers and select which ones you like. You have to select the right number of them. For example, if you have an exam where you get 8 questions or 6 questions and you have to only answer 3, then you can select 4 topics just to have one as a backup, because many times they change questions. You will get similar questions than your past exam papers. However, they could change it. Like you could get a completely different question than what you expected. So that's why it's important to have one backup and not just, if you have to answer 3 questions, then prepare 4 to have one as a backup. And then learn how to answer those 4 questions instead of 6. So that way you focus your attention on answering 4 questions rather than 6, and you have more time to improve yourself for answering those 4 questions. If you do this, you won't need to study every topic, and you will only need to study the selected topics. Common mistakes that will lower your grade, and most of the students make this. So make sure you don't make those mistakes if you want to get a first class. First, being descriptive. Like most of the law students just describe the law without any argument. That's wrong. You should not do this. That's the way to get a low grade or even fail. Like if you don't have arguments at all, that's a fail. Then providing arguments without evidence. Some law students think that if they just say what they think, that's enough. It's not true. Like you have to back up your thoughts with evidence, just like lawyers do. Imagine like a lawyer goes to the court and says, I think my client is not guilty. That's not how law works, right? You have to provide evidence. Why? Why do you think what you think? And it has to be solid evidence. And by evidence, we mean cite case law, cite statutes, journal articles, uh, newspapers could also be cited, but it has to be reputational media articles. You cannot just cite anything. It has to be high quality sources that is considered high quality sources in academia. Poll structure, another way to get a bad grade. Every problem question or essay question has to have a very, very clear structure. So it has to be IRAC structure for problem questions, and for essay questions, introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion. And in body paragraphs, you have explanation of the law, analysis, arguments, explanation of the law, analysis, arguments. So you have to follow this structure, and all your arguments in an essay has to logically go to the conclusion. Otherwise, it's messed up. Like you have arguments all over the place and it's not structured properly. So you won't get a good grade if you have a poor structure. Then having low quality sources, you should be able to identify what is a high quality source and what is a low quality source. For example, government resources, always a good quality. The statutes, like legislation, Gov UK, cases, Supreme Court, everything that comes from courts and government and legislation, everything is good. In terms of media articles, it has to be high quality media like BBC, CNN. Those are very high quality media articles. You can use them. Guardian as well. But make sure that you don't use any kind of like low reputation media articles. If you don't do enough research as well, that's another reason why you could get a bad grade. If you have a coursework, let's say for 1,000 words, there is certain number of resources that is expected from you, but it's not just about the quantity, it's also about the quality. You may have like 5 pages of references, but the quality may be bad because the arguments you're making is not very elaborate, is not very strong. So it's not about quantity, it's more about quality. So you need to have good number of quality resources, and it has to make sense based on how long your assignment is. So if for an assignment of 1,000 words, you won't be expected to do the same level of research as for an assignment for 5,000 words. So the length of your assignment is also important. Lack of understanding of the law. A lot of students just don't understand the law, and it shows very clearly when you write problem and essay questions. It's obvious if you don't understand the law. So make sure that you understand the law correctly, because if you don't, then it will show in your critical analysis. Low quality arguments. Your arguments must be backed up with evidence, as well as it has to show that you have a very good understanding of the law. There are no correct arguments and incorrect arguments. That's true. But there is correct understanding of the law and there is incorrect understanding of the law. So if you don't understand the law correctly, then your arguments will not be correct in that sense. So make sure that you understand the law and make sure that your arguments are very high quality, backed up with very high quality resources and evidence. Grammar issues, finally, like there are a lot of tools online that you can use for grammar issues. Even Word document has a grammar check, so make sure that you check grammar before you submit your assignment. Just to sum up, for a first class, follow these 3 steps. Go to simplestudying.com. We have simplified your job for you. You don't have to read thousands of pages of overcomplicated textbooks. You can read our oversimplified condensed study notes and other study resources we have, like model essays, tutorial videos, flashcards. Then I highly recommend one-to-one tutoring. Students who get our subscription plus one-to-one tutoring usually get a first class. So you can get a first class just with a premium membership, but Just to improve your chances, I highly, highly recommend one-to-one tutoring. Most of the students need one-to-one tutoring, at least for 6 hours, to understand how it works, how problem and essay questions should be answered. And then you can attend the free revision sessions like this one. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel where we have so many free classes that you can use to revise and to understand how to answer problem and essay questions and improve your legal writing skills. Thank you very much.